white supremacy, because what he's implying is the Chinese success is owed to, the magnanimity of the white man. He's come from a place where he thinks that nothing can happen without the consent of the white man. So the success of the Chinese, the Japanese, the Koreans was because the white man allowed them to. I mean, that is literally the definition of white supremacy, and he subscribes to that shit. And he is, he does not agree to that, notion of white supremacy, of course. But he thinks that it's true. He thinks that the Europeans are the best and nothing can happen without their consent.
No, if you were to ask him that, he would say that's not true. He would refute what you're saying about him, but I think it's funny in the sense that every country has their own perspectives, and I just got to say that the black perspective in America is the American perspective. It supersedes the white perspective in terms of communication discourse. So it is the dominant form of political thought, which is black American political thought.
So, honestly, there are certain Malaysians, I would say even Chinese Malaysians, that actually subscribe to white supremacy. They pretend that, they forget their roots. They think that they are westernized, they buy into the whole woke thing. By the way, I think that's a bit too far.
I think I'm trying to troll.
Right? And that's why it's getting a lot of backlash even from within.
I'm trying to troll so subtly, or
with the transgender.
I'm like.
And all that. So that said, okay, that's enough with the anecdotal stuff. But in actuality, what I said earlier, okay, this could be trigger warning.
Gaslight alert! Gaslight alert!
That's not my intention, right? It's just, this is just historical fact, right? There are many forms of slavery. Chattel slavery is the severest form, right? In other forms of slavery, you can be freed after a number of years, working for a family, and then you can, marry whoever you want. In fact, sometimes you may even marry into the family that used to be a servant or slave to, right? But chattel slavery is the most brutal, no rights, like literally in chains. And how do they procreate, right? They don't get to pick. The slave masters decide, because chattel slavery implying that people literally were treated like chattel, like property. So they pick the strongest male and the female, and preferably, obedient ones. And that's how they make the next generation of chattel slavery. So because of chattel slavery,
China guy, would you, let me interrupt real quick, would you agree that chattel slavery is technically like a form of robotism or automation at the biological level?
Don't do this, let me fucking finish, I'm almost done. So because of chattel slavery, people were indeed bred for their strength, their brawn, not necessarily their brains, right, on average. And regards to your
But that can't be true. You would have to want...
So, what you talk about statistics, I'm sure it could be correct, but then again, in terms of proportion, is that true? It's the same proportion of Black Americans back then in the 60s, right? Were going to university as the same proportion of other peoples, other colors of people in America. Or it's just, only the very best of Black Americans, ADOS, get to attend universities back then. Oh, these are all questions. I'm sure I've actually not heard of stats, so I really can't comment on that. I'm just allowing other possible explanations.
Listen, have you seen the movie Django Unchained?
No, I don't like gritty, grimy movies generally.
Well, you should watch it because it deals with what's called Mandingo fighting. And Mandingo fighting was the UFC of the 40s, 50s, 60s, 70s. They would take their top slave fighters and hold boxing matches, and they would breed them and trade them like trading cards. People really don't understand the extent to which chattel slavery is essentially a eugenics, breeding, biological program where there's no technology involved other than, Darwinian type breeding for natural, best traits. So it's a very sick, fucked up eugenicist thing. But down the street at my local Planned Parenthood, they're, going to sacrifice a couple babies this morning and abort some fetuses. So in terms of eugenics, I get the feeling that most racist bigots are really subscribers to theories on eugenics. And then, let alone if you are an ADOS, you are actually a survivor of a eugenicist type breeding program of, enslavement. And that's, but these things have been settled through the Civil War and through all these arbitration and settlements and compromises between the peoples of this country. So all black identity politics is essentially hypnosis or disinformation, because countless generations have killed themselves to settle these questions. And so there's just nothing new under the sun. That's all I'm saying.
Yeah, thank you, John. Oh, by the way, I'm not proposing eugenics or advocating for it. I'm saying just historically that's what happened, right? So why are we so surprised that Black Americans are overly disproportionately represented in NFL, in those sports that are rather aggressive? Because there's a correlation between aggression and testosterone level and muscle mass, right? All that.
So like I'm sorry. I'm sorry laughing over here. First off, I just want to say that other than the immigrants who came to the U.S. In the last 100 years, most people who came to the U.S. we are survival of the fittest to endure the ship ride, whatever ship we came over on, whether it's from Europe or from Africa. To survive that, the descendants are.
No doubt about that. I'm not disputing that. I'm talking about the IQ part.
That's just one point. And then I mean, you're the people who came to Malaysia, other than Malays, the Indian Malaysians, the Malaysian Indians, the Malaysian Chinese, and other than the Malaysians in Sabah and Sarawak, other than the Malays, people who came to Malaysia came to work as well, right? They came to man the plantations. They came to man the plantations for for the British, et cetera, et cetera. But they still survived and achieved and did really well for themselves, and not being necessarily bred for this or bred for that.
No. Immigrants and victims of human trafficking are two different things. I mean, even victims of human trafficking. No, we are talking about chattel slavery. You cannot compare chattel slavery, like literally. It's unfortunate, but that's indeed what happened. I'm not faulting anyone. If you're going to fault, of course you fault the white slave owners. But the fact is that Black Americans went through a history, and that's their genetic history of chattel slavery. And during that period, they were bred, for what is best in best interest of the slave owners, which is strong slaves with high endurance, so that they could, work themselves and not die, right, in the fields. And IQ is not a criteria, in that selection process, in that artificial selection.
It's robots.
It's not different from immigrants, right? By the way, I'm Peranakan Chinese, which means that my ancestors came like 300 years ago during the early Ming Dynasty, and we would. So we didn't come over as blue collar workers.
Hey, China guy.
It's still different from chattel slavery for sure.
China guy, have you ever seen the photos of chattel slavery and the chains and irons that they put people in? It's like they put these giant neck manacles on with spikes so they can't really move around very well. And history of slavery in the Roman Empire is the exact same thing. This system of slavery, through basically metallurgy, in terms of pinning people down and making them essentially human laborers that have no freedom of movement. That is a technological innovation. So I'm just saying that, I don't really have anything else to say other than, I don't think you're a racist personally. And I think that, in my opinion, when we have conversations, it's to try to describe situations as accurate as possible, because all of life is just opinion, but the universe has changed. So I think, in terms of the gaslighting effect, or just this app in general, I just think it's more of a way to be aware of emotional disequilibrium. And because all these trivial, meaningless conversations will be lost in just minutes after leaving the app. So, you can't remember what you talked about yesterday or for the past 2 years on this app. It's It to me, it says that all communication is hypnosis. I am now completed. Thank you.
Dude, your go-to line, Max. I'm not trying to. I mean, I'm pretty sure I wasn't trying. You can feel that I wasn't trying to gaslight anyone. It's just that the environment of discourse with regards to this topic, right? It's so contentious from the Americans' perspective for obvious reasons, and this, part of history, often it's rather. I mean, they rather forget it for the sake because it is, for the blacks, right? And sorry, go.
No, I mean, come on. Like, you can't just say Black Americans dominate NFL and whatever, because we still have white Americans who
No, it's proportionally represented. My term is Black Americans are disproportionately represented in the NFL. Is that not a true statement?
Yeah, I have not investigated why. I think that would have something to do with elementary school athletics.
Because you're strong as fuck, that's why.
No, I think it has something to do with athletics in elementary school and high school that prioritizes football and basketball in inner cities and in outside the city actually over any other sport. I think that has more to do with that than anything else. Just like Canada has hockey, and those kids train when they're very, very young and in elementary school. America, we have football and basketball, and then maybe baseball.
That kind of argument is like, then why are so many black families in the inner city, right? Not other people's. So it's a roundabout. Honestly, it's just.
Yeah, you can say that. No, it's true. I mean, why do you think there's a higher portion of Black Americans who are still settled in the South? Because that's where we were to begin with. If you look at how America was set up and the history of the different populations and how they got to the U.S. And you'd see Chinese Americans out in California and out west, because mostly they worked on the railroad system out west, and then they were given citizenship later. So yeah. But anyway, I just wanted to say hi. It's very late for us in Malaysia. It's like 10 till 1 a.m., at least for me in KL. So just wanted to say hi. Interesting discussion. Didn't mean to hijack the room, but I was in Marvin's room. He said, "Oh, he was speaking of you and said you're in Malaysia." And I was like, "Oh, I should go say hi." So, Abu Kabar.
So do you think, because I bring this up, I'm a racist to bring up history, basically? I mean, the more
well, I don't know. I just know what people were saying about you in the other room, and they were saying that you said that blacks have low IQs, and so I was like, "Oh, I need to tell this guy hi."
No, by the way, I do discern Black Americans from actual Africans. By the way, my African friends who are actually in Africa, they think that Black Americans give them a bad name. So this is not even among Black people that are not from America, not ADOS.
Yeah, well, I can tell you what happened to me in Cheng Tak with my friend from America. Actually, wearing this dress right after this dress. Last day of Chinese New Year. She's from New York. She's living in Singapore, and we were at a very popular expat bar that closed at 3 a.m. Wanted to continue to party, and we ultimately we didn't have to, but we had to prove we were American, so they wouldn't think that we were prostitutes from Africa. They were not going to let us in this bar because on appearance, we just had brown skin, and we're like, that's when I highly and strongly pulled out my American card. Not American card per se, but I played the American card, and so that's what I might have to say about my fellow African sisters, maybe giving Black American women a bad name in Asia. So yeah, true story. And I was wearing this dress too in Cheng Tak.
Okay, thanks for dropping in. I appreciate our short interaction. Perhaps we'll talk somewhere in the future.
Yeah, I'll see you around. Bye.
Good night.
Anyways, does shaming work?
I think it does. You know, just like, oh, you're racist, no, 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 no. Then, you know, when all is said and done, okay, let's have a conversation, which we did. Right? I mean, I think you can call me insensitive for digging up, you know, the inconvenient truth. But you can't call me racist. But, you know, it triggers a lot more people, and I like that. I mean, if I'm perceived as a racist. Oh, by the way, Max is still here kind of listening. I think Max, okay, I'm going to say something which is pretty controversial. Maybe you'll say like gaslighting, John. I'm sure you've noticed that sometimes you can just tell that if a person is black, right? And especially men, and even women to an extent. Black guy. And that's probably why I thought it was violent, because of his height, the testosterone level. And testosterone obviously is correlated to muscle mass as well, strength, right? And yeah, I can detect that from men and women. Most of the time, I can tell, basically.
Well, there is a dialect in America. I don't know what you call it or how to accurately describe it, but you can tell in African Americans and Black American speakers, there is a dialect. And even if they try to modify their voice to make themselves sound like Betty Boop, you can still, what I'm saying is there is learned behavior or learned repeated dialectic in the African American community, which is a telltale sign of probably shared community trauma in terms of like not knowing what to do. Because in terms of intelligence gathering, and networks of people, America is just so incredibly diverse now at this point in terms of leadership, in all forms of the structural organization, top executive branch to subgroups and all this stuff. There's just so many successful Black people in America that the whole racist white society or structural white racism and critical race theory itself is nothing more than a political educational propaganda. It's just not true. It's not an accurate depiction because it's not even affirmative action at this point. There's just the pantheon of American history is Black success. So to me, it's just a never-ending cycle of a loop of political misinformation, disinformation, and propaganda. I just can't believe. And I do not believe, and I think everything is just completely political echo chambering and hypnosis, pretty much.
I think internal discourse and the retrospective, right, about your own community, regardless of which community you come from, it's important. And that's how the shaming works, right? So if your own community shuns you because of a certain behavior, then it's a learned beat. You know that you shouldn't do that, otherwise your community shuns you. But if that doesn't happen, in fact, if the community actually encourages it, let's say, for example, the Black community. I've seen it many times. We deserve it. This country owes us because of Black slavery. If you steal, fine. Because they owe us. And in fact, this sort of behavior is encouraged. Not only it's not shamed, it's encouraged. Then over time, they'll get more brazen, and this vicious cycle will never end. So that's why I think we're shaming, especially when it comes to internal shaming. Your people shaming your own people, just like I would shame my people for behaviors that I don't agree with. Over time, that would help, at the very least. Amen.
What up? Well, it's been a fascinating conversation as always, and I can't thank you enough for helping me facilitate this engaging discourse, China Guy. Strength and courage, health, wealth, love, peace of mind, happiness, and strength. God bless you, China Guy.
I enjoy your company too. And you've been pretty, kind of pretty good today, but yeah, you can still tone it down like a notch. I would appreciate it even more.
You know, the amazing part is I'm not even drinking yet.
And I'm going to make more tea. I don't know, actually, I'm pretty worn out. This conversation is rather exhausting.
Well, you do it to yourself, really. You know, that's why I say get yourself some good books. Have you ever read the Dhammapada by the Buddha? Or the Lao Tzu Tao Te Ching? Or Confucius's Discourses?
No.
Oh my God. I went to Harvard. I have the entire Harvard rare book collection, and I have everything from all of ancient Chinese wisdom. And it is so profound that to not study it is truly to miss a great opportunity in life.
I generally stay away from philosophy. History, biography, and that's what I like to read.
You got to understand, philosophy does deal with history, and it does deal with law, and it deals with consciousness and psychology, and essentially it's political Machiavellian, Nietzschean, all wrapped into one. It's all about how to be number one. Number one.
I think it's about how to, especially philosophy, right? Especially for not very religious people, philosophy is about looking for a higher meaning to life, which may or may not exist if you ask me. I think we're just fancy monkeys at the end of the day.
Well, that's the thing about books, is when you read a book from the year 300 BC, you realize that you are a moron and that they were much fancier monkeys, and there are much fancier monkeys than you and I. And that's the truth of the earth, my nigga.
Yeah, that's why I constantly tell people, right? A lot of people just assume that our ancestors, and they have a very simplistic way of trying to explain history, with their. And I say, no, I say, in terms of how the dynamics between human beings, our interaction, right, the struggle between money and power and all that, yeah, it's not changed. Psychologically, we have not evolved. No, not by that much. So, but in terms of history, they like to simplify history often, which I don't appreciate. Their motivation is so simplistic, but they forget there's a lot of stuff, especially what's happening internally, that is perhaps lost to us forever. If nobody wrote it down or nobody dared to write it down. Earlier, Max was like, well, I'm going to leave, and then she didn't leave. I think she was trying to intimidate me.
Well, I think her story is kind of interesting, how she said that she was confronted by the police at 3 a.m. to prove her identity as an American, not an African prostitute. Now, this is the thing about people who die going to nightclubs or bars. Everybody says, oh, you're such a great person. Why did they die at that nightclub? Or why were they arrested at that nightclub? And when you are in foreign lands as an African American woman who probably doesn't have great credibility anymore in the global mind's eye, at 3 in the morning when you're wearing a scandalous dress and you're drunk and you want to keep drinking, and you think that the police are racist for asking whether or not you're a prostitute from Africa, when they're just doing their job and they're there to fuck with you at 3 in the morning because you're in probably a social district, and they're trying to cut down on vulgarity or licentiousness or vice. I mean, it's the vice squad. Like, You can't be a black woman in America in a foreign land and expect police to just sit there and watch you walk around and do whatever you want and not be questioned. So her egotism and narcissism, I think was probably put in check by this room, but she is enjoying the fruits and of her labors in a paradise, I am sure. And there's a reason why she's there. It's because she's making good money, I'm sure. So God bless her. She's one of the smart ones. You should be thankful that she got out of America and is now living in your country, because she's probably a smart chick, and she gets a lot done for whoever she works for. So God bless her. I mean, she's no dummy. But I just say it's such a small world where someone in your own country is a black woman from America trying to one up you. And that's the thing about the universe. It does seem like there is synchronicity in the sense that the universe is so sophisticated in this simulation that every day, in every way, every hour to the minute, you constantly seem to be like one-upped or trolled or gaslit by the universe. I guarantee you, if you let this room keep going, at some point someone will come in and try to gaslight you, because the universe is embodied in the self. So it's people trolling people, it's gaslighters gaslighting gaslighters, it's clown world participants. Like, be aware of the clown world, and be a clown master, don't be a clown slave.
Or what goes around comes around. I've already, I think, built somewhat reputation for myself about being controversial, but yet being able to back up what he says. So often, I do get challengers, once in a while, and especially, older white guys. I'm not going to name names, right? And they would try to one up me, right? Of misquote me and say the certain things and say, hey, and I'm doing this, in their native tongue. So, and I still own them and doing it. That's my go-to.
Well,
sometimes
I mean, listen, effeminate white American men who want a virtue signal and play the one-upmanship game with you, like, they're probably generally pretty queer, or they're just basically, there's a lot of them, but the whole world is brainwashed. I mean, particularly America's a very at this point a degraded society. It only took 20 years to essentially crack the American mind wide open and start eating its own brain.
I think it's more, a clash of egos more than anything. And it doesn't go well with them, especially I'm not a white guy. I think it's even a harder pill to swallow because of that. Of course, they will never admit it. I don't think she was trying to gaslight me or anything. It's just that, she stated her pedigree, right, quite clearly. Her grandmother was in university way back then. That's basically, stating her pedigree. And honestly, I doubt. She doesn't sound like a black woman, honestly. Like, her voice is pretty.
No, she's an African American woman living in your country. You see, that's the funny thing, is earlier you were saying I can notice black people, by the tone of their voice. She's a black woman living in your country.
No, not by the tone of her voice. So I think she might be mixed. Like, who knows?
Oh no, she could be biracial, but she's mostly African American.
Well, she certainly identifies as being black. Funny, right? It doesn't matter if you're mixed, you're both white and black. If you're half black, then you are just identified as, or you would yourself identify as a black person. Funny how this works. And I was talking to my friend from the UK, and she is half English, half Nigerian, and she calls herself a black woman all the time. And I said, you are as much white as you are black. And then she went like, I never thought of it like that. And I said, what? How funny how this shit works.
Yeah, well, when you want to attack, you're white, or when you want to attack, you're black. I mean, people play both sides of the card, and everybody in this country is now getting, turned into a tan paste of amalgamated genetic soups. Pretty soon, the entire racist argument will be completely erroneous. But that's so far away. I still think that countless generations in this country have settled these questions. And the fact is, people aren't aware of history. So that's why we have such hyperbolic emotional debates in this app, because people are completely unaware of the real history. And as such, they come on here to create their own political echo chambers because it's basically a form of self empowerment, or essentially ego expansion, or some type of subconscious Machiavellian Nietzschean way of reorganizing. Now, I'm kind of projecting, but nonetheless, we are doing like a linguistic debate. Everyone is a public speaker here, and they are trying to essentially dominate through their wisdom.
All through their ability to, uh, exhibit their reason and logic, and carry it through in terms of delivery to get his or her point across. No, but this friend of mine, she's actually a very intelligent, very accomplished person. So I don't think that's what you say. I think it's more like you are who the world sees you as. Since she doesn't, I mean, if you're mixed, because white is a very pale color, so the chances are going to come out, not white, right? Very tan usually. So if the world sees, these biracial people as black, then they would just by default identify as black, because that's the real world that we live in, instead of like the liberal woke world that you are what you identify as, which is complete bullshit. You are what the world or society sees you as, and that's how it works and always have worked.
Subconscious intelligence is really love or compassion, which is peace mind. So that's why I like coming on here and shitting on atheists, because a lot of these atheists on this app don't have peace mind. But if they were to study, psychologically advanced materials about identity or self, or basically love poetry, they would become much more harmonious people. And so I mean, that's, kind of why I feel like this app is important in terms of shaming people, is that I am secretly trying to imbue the good news of the power of linguistics. Like, I believe that you are who you say you are. So if a lot of people can't define themselves in terms of even being a flower, they are not flowers. They are just cow shit. And as such, you have rooms full of feces spewing diuretic viruses all over each other, which is emotional instability, illogical thinking, inaccurate historical citations, and essentially all communication is hypnosis. It's just a bell-shaped curve of retarded versus less retarded hypnosis. Thank you. I am now complete.
You crack me up every time you say that. And the thing is, I knew you were going to say that, because you never fail to disappoint me. Anyway, Lao Tzu says that a beautiful flower can grow from a pile of shit. Anyway, so you were saying something, Deacon? Are you gonna say something, Deacon? No, just moving your phone, I guess. Oh, you are trying to say something. I can barely hear you. You're so quiet.
Can't hear you, Deacon. But before we end this room, or you end this room, or I leave this room, I would like to read a small passage of Epictetus or Marcus Aurelius, which is Greek Roman philosophy. If you've never heard it, I think I can demonstrate very easily how retarded we've become in this clown world of of clowns. Because the truth, when you hear the truth, it's undebatable. It's a maxim. It's an aphorism. It's a linguistic proof of simplicity and genius. And I think just coming on here and doing opinion-based discourse leaves us basically in a state of still disarray, because We may think we're trying to accurately describe the situation, but silence is the only thing that can truly describe the situation. That's my opinion. That's my philosophical opinion.
By the way, I am an atheist, but I think most atheists you encounter are just recovering from your theism, right? And that's why they act, in a certain way. That's why they are a little bit anti-religion, a little bit anti-God, or they come across that because they are in recovery.
I don't know about that. I think that they're just angry people and failed to get the message. They didn't hang up the phone and get the knowledge or the understanding, and they're still in a state of emotional disequilibrium. They're still not in control of their thoughts. They are still not essentially engaging in propaganda warfare. They're engaging in deflection, and they're engaging in comedic repertoires that, because they themselves are clowns. They're not real educated, trained professionals of states or governments. They are clown house users engaging in a gaslighting operation to try to essentially get dopamine feedback loops. It's like a video game. It's basically a video game to describe this environment.
Are you seriously still playing cassette tapes in this day and age?
Do I play cassette tapes? In my car, I do.
Oh gosh.
Yeah, I have a 2001 Lexus sedan that has a tape deck. The Japanese built amazing cars. I mean, my car's not great, but it's still fucking pretty cush. And it's stood for 20 years now. Like that's a testament to good manufacturing for the most part. I mean, it's not because you can buy a new car today and you're still disappointed because you got all these like little issues with even a newly manufactured car. You're like, what the fuck? Why does my new car have problems? This is insane. Because look who's building all the clown cars, man. Clowns. I rely on Japanese, proficiency. The Japanese, they take pride in their product. You go to Detroit, you got people complaining about by Donald Trump.
We live in the age of planned obsolescence.
What?
We live in the age of planned obsolescence. They are made to break so that you buy more.
Oh yeah, I agree. Or the software doesn't work anymore. Apple and Microsoft are terrible products. Everything sucks. You can buy a phone with 100 gigabytes on it or 30 gigabytes, and next thing you know, if you don't clear the space and you can't download their update, your phone doesn't even work. I mean, and they're putting all these extra gigabytes in your phone that you don't even want.
To spy on you. To spy that's what all the data is for. To spy on you. The irony.
I know.
We're paying for them on you.
I know.
That's why I do the iPhone.
Listen, we live in a slave world, and this is really the important thing: is to try to figure out how to hack slave world so you can essentially be Neo in the Matrix and not live in a subservient state of idiocy and stupidity. Because chattel slavery has just simply evolved into into domestic surveillance capital. And, if you're going to have emotional shitstorms over the fact that you are a disequilibrated slave of some sort, you're going to come on this app and scream like a little bitch. This is a highly, if you really do believe in IQ theory and IQ debate or censorship, meaning that low IQ should be censored, and you're going to essentially shame people that exhibit low IQ into censoring them into submission, well, then you have to still provide the programming to replace the censorship. If you don't do that, you are going to create even more problems in society. I do believe that you can induce intelligence through a combination of chemical and information exchange.
No, I don't believe that we should, because who is going to decide who to censor and who to not? That's dangerous realm that we are heading to, right? I think the community should do not do the censoring, right? But to humiliate and shame these people into compliance. I mean, that to me is enough, right? Because when you have a central institution doing the censoring, you don't know what they are doing and for what vested interest. No, I don't think that's a good idea. I think it's sufficient, if we create an environment whereby it's okay to shame retards.
Well, I'm gonna go do some yoga in my other room in the sunshine, but I would love to read just a couple passages on wisdom, which I think will be in stark contrast to the overall conversation that has been conducted in this room. If you'll just give me 60 seconds to 180 seconds of your precious time.
Go right ahead.
Okay, this is Marcus Aurelius. There are three relations between thee and other things: the one to the body which surrounds thee, the second to the divine cause from which all things come to all, and the third to those who live with thee. Pain is either an evil to the body, then let the body say what it thinks of it, or to the soul, but it is in the power of the soul to maintain its own serenity and tranquillity, and not to think that pain is an evil. For every judgment and movement and desire and aversion is within, and no evil ascends so high. Wipe out thy imaginations by often saying to thyself, now it is in my power to let no badness be in this soul, nor desire, nor any perturbation at all, but looking at all things they see what is their nature, and they use each according to its value. Remember this power which thou hast from nature. Speak both in the Senate and to every man, whoever he may be, appropriately, not with any affectation. Use plain discourse. Augustus's court, wife, daughter, descendants, ancestor, sister, Agrippa, kinsmen, intimates, friends, Arius, Marcenus, physicians, and sacrificing priests, the whole court is dead. Then turn to the rest, not considering the death of a single man, but of a whole race, as of the Pompey, and that which is inscribed on the tombs, the last of his race. Then consider that what troublesome those before them have had, that they might leave a successor, and that of necessity someone must be the last. Again, here consider the death of a whole race.
I still prefer wisdom is learning from other people's mistakes.
It's more than that. There are books dedicated to extensive research. That book, Marcus Aurelius's Meditations, is the wisdom and philosophy straight from one man's mind at the top of the entire food chain. He wrote out a daily simulation for himself to consult, to remind himself of the absolute insanity of reality and how many ways the universe is going to gaslight you. He basically, that philosophy is Stoic wisdom, which is you have no control over the universe, only your emotional response to the situation. People discount emotional intelligence in such a way to say that there's only one intelligence. That's not true. There's multiple forms of intelligence. I mean, the other form of intelligence is creative intelligence. That is the real brilliance, is when you can be creative. And, there's so many infinite ways to be creative. But how do you be creative in a way that captures the imagination and you can monetize it or synthesize it in such a way where you're killing two birds with one stone? I mean, I believe that I'm doing it personally. I come on this app to basically try to wake people up to the fact that they are engaging in hypnosis and they're completely unaware of it. Because the philosophers say the whole system of philosophy is essentially to try to dehypnotize yourself. It's like reverse engineering yourself linguistically, psychologically, materially, economically, emotionally, physically. The more you can separate yourself from the system, the greater your space, the greater your power. So the question is, how do you create gravity out of nothing? How do you create something out of nothing? And are you really retarded or are you actually a genius? So the whole system creates genius effect. And if you can monetize it, or essentially create a network of people that enjoy your content, you become an entertainer. And that's what everyone should be working towards too. But instead, most people on this app are just engaging in a caste system of hypnosis or political echo chambering because they refuse to do heavy lifting. It's just a lot of manipulative, psychopathic, sociologically, you know, uh, retarded people on this app that are brain damaged. And, some of them are successful, but most of them are scam artists.
I think most people don't have an agenda. It's just to kill time, like I said, right? And it's fun. It's a fun way to kill time.
It's more than that, though. Some people can't let this shit go. I can't let it go because I view it as a video game. If I ever got sued for anything I ever did on this app, I would just tell the jury, excuse me, this is a video game app on my cell phone. What is this all about? I don't even understand what this whole thing's about. I thought I was playing a video game.
Dude, that is what I used to treat internet chat rooms. Actually, the dynamics on Clubhouse is a bit different because you can just like at any time open your own room, right? But in a tiny chat, there's videos. Those rooms are permanent, more or less. So they got there's actually hierarchy. There's actually a group of people trying to, run the room, make the room work, make the room interesting. Kind of like a firm, right? Although of course they don't get paid. They just have too much time on their hands. So the dynamics is quite different. So my favorite thing used to be is to infiltrate those rooms, play nice, build a reputation for myself, and then fuck with them. Because once you know those characters, they are moderators, you can get away with a lot more. It's actually like a video game. It's like a social game. Oh no, it's like it's more like what's it called? There's a show, Survivor. That 20-year-old show about people living. So they talk about how to play the game in a social. Got to win challenges. You got to win socially. How to curry favor, earn other people's trust, and then you backstab them, and that's how you win the game. Kind of like that. Which is infinitely more interesting than video games, if you ask me.
I agree. That's why I think like the Super Bowl or any kind of media, whether it's in the movie theater or other things on your device, I do, that is the fun thing about Clown House. It is like an interactive first person shooter of linguistic, combative intelligence, because subtle ways to be subversive or to gaslight, that it is like an exposure into the warfare of the mind. And they say, in the future people will be infected with brain viruses that they're completely unaware of, and why they think the way they think. It's actually because of like a military research project. And that is modern day chattel slavery, where you can get a nanobot or some type of psychological implant into people's brains to make them essentially psychotic. You can cause psychotic breaks, and I think in terms of like political echo chamber hypnosis and turning people violent, I think that with enough rhetoric, you can turn large groups of people into violent, psychotic, revolutionary, trans operated, penisless, purple haired socialist communists.
Then you wonder, why the NSA and the CIA fucking spying on you on the internet. Yeah, because it's dangerous. It can be used to subvert large number of people, because of how the internet connects to people, and basically overthrow the system. I'm sure you know Diogenes. I mean, there is that's my privilege, but you discovered or realized what he's up to, right?
Yeah, I mean, whatever he's actually doing versus what he's actually saying on this app, I think are always two totally different things. I think a lot of people project, their utopian vision, or or really their planning or their propaganda. People are just projecting their inner monologue, but whether it's truth or fiction, you never know. So I think a lot of people, like, if you listen to him, I think he's technically a gaslighter, in the sense that, like, government operatives will create fake racist fascist organizations in order to create echo chambers to allow other mentally deranged morons to participate in their terroristic hate-filled rhetoric. So I would just beware of anyone who is actually creating racist content. It's possible that they're not who they say they are.
Okay, thanks for the heads up. But I think what it is I think he's got lofty ideals, first of all. To achieve his lofty ideals, he's got to first build a base of support. And I think he's trying to create a cult of personality, right? Of course, that centers around him. I think that's what he's up to. Maybe you can accuse me.
No, I don't believe what he says. I think he's lying on this app for sure, because he claims he has 8 children, but yet he's on here all the time, and I've never once heard any of these children in the background. So I think he's lying about a lot of things on this app. And I don't know who he is or what he does. I don't know if he fixes toilets for a living, or if he works at Taco Bell. I don't really care. He's just one person, and doesn't impact my life who he is or what he says.
Yeah, I just have the interest of like figuring shit out. Right, that's in my nature, and I think he's just trying to create a couple personality around himself, and then maybe achieve his lofty ideals. And very, obviously his rhetorics are very political and very preachy. If you ask me, maybe too preachy for my taste. But at the very least,
he's the only person on Clownhouse other than myself who has ever triggered incitement and hateful speech warnings on all platforms. So and I'm only, why some of my content might be considered insightful or hateful is because I'm recording Diogenes. And I'm having conversations with him. And when I don't even want to say the stuff that he says, but he's calling for the murder of innocent people to make a point. And when you start making those types of statements, you do start building a network of hate by projecting hate. I project peace. I believe in essentially the psychological and philosophical strategy of subversion through peace. That to me is more effective than violent resistance, and I think history proves that point.
If he does that, I've never heard him say that, but if he does, I think he's just trying to get hits, basically, right? To be incendiary for the sake of being incendiary, so that he gets more attention to get hits.
I get it, but it's also, like I said, I believe this app is not only a video game, but also in some ways a form of a medical device technology in the sense that people are getting dopamine feedback loops by having conversations. And so the general state is depression for a lot of obese, fat, nasty pigs. And so they come here because they are so depressed. And coming here fills up their dopamine feedback receptors by speaking.
Well, at least he's an interesting character. Most people are boring. Right?
Well, that's the performative art. As a public speaker, he's a successful public speaker because he can flare your dopamine feedback loops and you enjoy listening to him. But I would just say that when he calls for the murder of innocent people, he's inciting hateful rhetoric and speech, which could be deemed terroristic.
Who does he want killed? Jews?
Everybody under the sun, apparently.
I know he's got a visceral hatred for Jews. And he says he's like partly Jewish, which his dad could have been, but he never knew his dad. So
he's Jewish. I've seen his picture. He's Jewish. Based on facial features and craniology, I am 100% sure that he's an Ashkenazi Jew. I've seen his picture. He looks like a 90% identified typo of Jew. He's Jewish. That's the irony of everything. See, that's why we live in clown world, where Adolf Hitler actually was a Jew. They say that he is Jewish. And he's got one testicle. The guy was, in the end, look at how he went down. He's just a blathering fool that they put in a burn pit, The guy was a fucking deranged moron. He ruled by hypnosis. His speeches, his hypnotic power of captivating audiences with his mannerisms and his screaming, he hypnotized the masses. So that's why I say all communication is hypnosis, and Diogenes is no different than a raving, screaming Hitler. And he's just as retarded.
No. That dude actually is pretty intelligent. Because, I don't know, I would say he's like in the 5 percentile, of the entire population.
Oh, really?
And most people that is in the top 10 percentile.
Well, where would you put McZed? Because he's technically the most well-educated and probably trained, monkey amongst all the clown house clowns.
I don't have extensive interactions with McZed. I barely noticed him because what impresses me is not knowledge, because knowledge can be easily acquired. Right? AI, it can be right? So I impress Diogenes because he see it from my, playing. When I was talking about, Code of Hammurabi and all that, there are 2 levels. He only saw the first level, but of course I saw,
I can assure you that your high praises of Diogenes, Geo is far more intelligent than Diogenes, and so is McZed. You like Diogenes because he's the most verbose rhetorician. He can flare your dopamine feedback loops, but at the same time, he is an idiot. He doesn't read books. He has no peace mind. Anybody who comes on here and raves and screams like a lunatic and calls for the death of innocent people is in many ways the worst amongst us.
Okay, let me tell you guys this, and I want you to, what you can read between the lines, all right? Okay, the Code of Hammurabi, and we have deciphered the Q&A form, so we know what they wrote. Part of it, they illustrated a portion which says, how they determine, if the defendant or the plaintiff is telling the truth. And how they went about it is they would burn a hot rod, copper rod, I would imagine, right, till red hot, and then the priest, through the power vested by their gods, would place that hot burning rod onto the tongue of both the plaintiff and the defendant. Then the priest would rub his thumb over the scorched tongues of both parties. And then by that, the priest, through the power ordained to him by those gods, would be able to tell who is telling the truth and who is lying. What do you get from this?
That all communication is hypnosis.
For heart's sake, seriously, think about it. There are two levels of deciphering, this very crucial information. I feel the hygienist got to the first level, right? Of course, I saw two levels because I'm the great China guy. But even to get to the first level, when it just took him seconds to figure it out, not even contemplating about it, that impressed me tremendously.
Yeah, but this, I mean, do you listen? If you study advanced mathematics, and if all communication is hypnosis, you will see that. I mean, I know I'm retarded and stupid and low IQ in the sense that I know how advanced mathematics and how complicated it is, in the sense that I know nothing in that specific science of communication, and how incredibly complicated, big data and software developing and all these things are. I know how insignificant and retarded I am. So I'm just saying that if I'm an insignificant retard, and I go into all these other rooms where we hear banging, how much more retarded are they than I? I mean, at least I can play a linguistic dialectical game.
They're not answering the question. You're going back to your, usual shtick, your one-trick pony. Max, did you hear what I said earlier? And what can you get out of that piece of information, which is historically accurate? Would you like to give it a go? Or anyone, Gio?
Okay, I'm sorry. Let me address your question. First off, I do believe that all questions are trick questions. Gio, I'll give you this mic in just a second. Let me think about why I believe this ritualistic ceremony of, hot coals on the tongue and then rubbing a thumb on the tongue to determine some type of augury or some type of vision of the truth. I mean, it's basically a metaphor for silence, that silence is the truth, that nothingness or the void or the vacuum is faster than the word. So if the word is the logos or the logos is God, silence is essentially the completion or the succession of making a victorious creation. So I'm just saying that this linguistic game, it's all hypnosis. And basically, wait, well, let me finish one more thing. Well, you said earlier, if you want to be my disciple, John, you're being a bad disciple. And I can tell you again, China guy, can you answer this question? Who is the teacher of Buddha?
His self-taught autodidactic. That's what. Okay, Max, you want to give it a go?
You mean the meaning of the ancient trial method?
Yeah, Code of Hammurabi.
Your question is, why did they explore the situation by putting a coal on the plaintiff and defendant and then examining them to divine the truth?
No, that's not why. This is something that learned.
No, that's what you're asking of me.
Yeah. So there's no question here, right? If there's a question, it's what do you get? What can you? What does that information?
Do I see of justice in this?
You can look at it from that perspective, sure. Whatever you first thing that comes to your mind.
Sure. I mean, I would tell you that this is a heavy-handed, draconian suggestion to explore settlement. Right? Meaning, what it's saying is, if there's a litigant and it comes before the court, you're both going to be using your tongues to defame the other. So, in the sense of justice, we already know you're both going to say horrible lies about each other. Rather, we shall punish your tongues, and the truth shall be revealed, and then we will settle the matter. Meaning it's kind of a judicial threat, like the imposition system of justice in order to ensure its superiority over like other areas. So if there's a plaintiff and a defendant coming to the court, put a coal in their mouth, see how much they're still committed to their case. If they both do it, I bet the priest will know which one's really committed. And by the way, these little games that they play, is like a technique of it, sometimes they lie, right? Sometimes the whole thing was a show. They were like fake coals. But we'll see which one gives up first. Within justice, there's always been games, because the whole point is, like you're saying, hypnotism to get people to accept the verdict. But it's always an educational effort to get people to understand why we're all going to go along with what the judge said we're going to do.
I reserve my comments, but Jill, you want to have a go at it? Hello?
Hey,
Hey,
yeah, I
big,
don't know enough about that.
hey, big boy.
Just trying to figure that out.
Hey, big boy.
But
Hey, big boy. Hey, big boy.
in a lot of olden times, you would have there was a ancient story that I read somewhere where there was a king of a kingdom, and he had two sons, and his first son had the right to primogeniture, right? He was gonna take over the kingdom, right? He was next in line. But the second son was the better son. Okay, he was the better ruler, and the second son was so mad that he started a civil war against his older brother, and they fought for decades and decades. And finally, the father, as he was dying, got so sick of it, he said, "You know what? You guys should just fight to the death, because otherwise this fight will go on forever and ever." And when I was a liberal, I never understood this. Like, what does this fight to the death do? But it actually resolves something that is unresolvable.
Hey, big boy. Hey, big boy.
Logically concluding that we can't tell who is right or wrong in this sense. And leaving that to the gods as an offering is a better resolution of practicality, where you can actually move forward and have a resolution of who won, rather than having an infinite civil war between those two factions for the rest of time.
Hey, big boy. Cash in your pink ticket and stick it up your anus, bitch. And join CRT education before your brain turn into a puddle of poop.
Right? So,
Hey, big boy.
if you've got quarrels with each other, if you are going to involve the
Hey, big
authority and the official institutions, there is a high cost of that litigation for both of you. So, if you can, you'd rather not get a hot fucking rock on your thumb and resolve that matter on your own. And that's from the perspective of a ruler. So if you get that, which means that you understand, you can separate the interest of the ruling class and what they manufacture consent as is, they are defenders of justice and all that bullcrap, right? Because their prerogative is that if you can settle those differences amongst yourself and not involve the authority, go do that. Otherwise, both parties will have to pay a dear price. That said, the second layer to it is that justice, obviously we don't believe in the gods that the Sumerians prayed to. Nobody does. Not today. So we know that, regardless of what your religious beliefs are, it would be like, it's a 50-50 shot of, how the priest would be somehow priest/judge would be able to determine who is actually lying or telling the truth, right? It's a 50-50. So the point is, it is immaterial, and that is what Jill said to an extent. It really doesn't matter who is right and who is wrong. Justice is not meant for the sake of justice. Justice is for the sake of having the public perceive that justice exists within that society. So when you live in a society where you know what the rules, what the laws are, and if you don't break those rules and laws, and then you'll be protected, and then society runs smoothly and harmoniously. And that is the point of all so-called justice system. It's not for the justice itself, and often, right? And we know from history, often innocent people are implicated in horrible crimes and they die for it, right? And later DNA evidence exonerate them. But the point is, when there is a crime committed, society needs the peace of mind to imagine, and very much so, especially with Abrahamic religions, whereby you think, evil people go to hell, this sort of thing. You want to imagine these evildoers are punished, and there are repercussions for your evil deeds, and that is the point.
And then also the justification of that authority, that judge, to have that final say, right? You guys have to both believe that as well. And it's a future, justification of that idea that there is a resolution and you will both agree to it, right? So that arbitration is more spiritual than legal in a sense.
I wouldn't say spiritual, I would say pragmatic. Right? Because
but pragmatically, it's something it's not just rational, what is right and wrong, and no, it's something beyond that, and you're just gonna accept whatever is the outcome of this, just like in the Civil War, the one-to-one duel between the two brothers. The father said, "Look, I am sick and tired of you guys fighting each other. We're gonna have to come to a conclusion because this is unending. So I'd rather you guys have a one-to-one duel, and the winner takes the kingdom, right?" So that is what I'm talking about. That right there is like the finality is made out of not rationality, but irrationality.
I would say that it's the most rational, right? We are talking about.
It is the most rational. Like violence is the most rational to me, but from liberal perspective, it's not.
It's in the interest of the majority of the people, right? In that sense, it's the most
sacrificial lamb. Yeah, it's a sacrifice of between.
Wait, Gio, can I interrupt you and just say that preparing for war and being a good fighter versus engaging in active violence is the better, I think, way to is a better way to accurately describe the best, simulation theory in terms of like geopolitical state.
Yeah, I don't disagree with that. I mean, exactly. It's better that your military in your country is fighting against enemies and against each other and having civil wars, right? But the problem then arises that what do you do with all those men? Which is a problem we have in the modern world. We haven't, in the past, a lot of countries had to figure out what they're going to do with huge populations of men, right? Who are not going to get married, who are like slaves, etc., etc. And I don't know. There's this joke by a black female comedian, Leslie Jones. She was in that Ghostbusters remake or whatever, and she has a joke that got her canceled by the left. And she said, "Look, like as an ugly woman in 2024, if I was in the slave times, my slave master would have found me a fit husband right now, a good-looking husband right now, because the marriages were kind of pushed to each other in certain places." So she made that joke and got canceled, but she's not wrong. Like, she's not wrong. Not at all.
Well, I mean, I think that, the natural or the organic is essentially the godliness that most people fail to see. Like when a woman, gets her lips injected and now she looks like a hideous clown instead of an organic, beautiful woman, it's really to their detriment to be susceptible to hypnosis. So, I mean, my whole thing is to try to dehypnotize people by shaming them or coming on here and engaging in prank calling and viewing this as a video game.
Yes, but shaming only works if the entirety of the society engages at every level. So this is how traditional societies function, right? Enough of the people have to be engaged in the shaming, and then to make it so that you develop the feeling of being shamed. Because now we live in a society.
Well, critical mass shaming.
Just real quick. But the problem is now we live in a society that has become so open and liberated that they are shameless. Like, these people have no shame when they twerk in the middle of the street, right? Like, they just are incapable of shame. Now what do you do? And
well, the system equilibration is the digital media, where when you record a person conducting themselves shamefully, in the future, if it's still online, they can pay the price for that activity.
Mm-hmm. No, and that's a good point. But the problem now is that because of liberalism, we have dozens of different cultures in America. We have rude, shitty behavior is just called, just hood culture. Instead of saying that's just bad behavior, we call it hood culture or lower class culture, redneck culture, and we let it slide. So, and the liberals are the ones who have allowed this to happen. Now it's the middle class and upper class that engage in Christian conservative, family-oriented pro-social behavior, where they'll raise 2 kids in a nuclear family and shit, and they would never let their kids, experience the opposite. But then they're telling poor people, hey, you should be single mothers. It's okay. It's your freedom.
So, Jill, to piggyback on what you said earlier, yeah, since, well, not my neck of the wood, fortunately, but since in the West, right, this lowering of the bar, everything is okay. So shaming doesn't work anymore like that because you need a concerted effort, right? Which I totally agree with you. And that's why I'm proposing it should start with internal retrospective self-criticism. I know, very Mao Zedong, but that's the only way, because all people are the ones with most to lose when everything comes apart, right? Because when that